Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan, and I'm the pastor here. So good to be with you this evening. I have some good news to share with you all tonight. We have people, Danny let me know this earlier today. We have people, I think we have an image for this. Do we have an image, Drew?
We do.
We have people, followers of the free message in 45 different countries. How cool is that? Guess what our number one country is outside of the U.S.?
New Zealand.
Not New Zealand. It is the UK, followed by, I believe, Kenya, India, Pakistan, 45 countries following the free message. And what's also cool about that is it's translated, the message is translated in 20 different languages. So that means the mission of breaking the silence of addiction and creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection is going to people all across the world. How cool is that? If you're new with us this evening, we are a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And like I just said a moment ago, we work to break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. I also want to give a shout out to a few other groups around the country. We should figure out names for y'all. But Free Circles up in Washington, the Washington State crowd. Woo woo! Glad you're with us tonight, Missy and others. We have a group in North Carolina, Jen and Christy and others gathering, I believe, in their home. We have different sober living houses all over the Denver area gathering tonight to tune in to what's happening here in this free community. And I'm glad y'all are with us tonight because this is going to be a cool night. I mean, I know every Saturday night it's kind of cool, and I'm a little biased, but tonight's going to be cool. I'm glad you're here. I want to say this, too. I got a message from our finance director earlier today, Lance Willoughby. He sent out statements. If you have given financially to this community, he sent out statements for your year-end giving for tax purposes. If you didn't receive an email and you have given and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't get the email and I should have gotten an email, please let me know and we will get you an email. We'll get you your statement as soon as possible. So if that's you and you're like, well, what's up? Let us know. We want to make it right. So it just means we didn't have your email. So let us know and we will connect with you. Now tonight, we are still in the second week of this Boundaries series, Boundaries, Loving the Addict in Your Life. But before we get to tonight, I want Danny to come up and say a word about our guest storyteller next week. His name is Kevin Peterson. Danny, tell us about Kevin.
Hello, Free Community. My name is Danny Kalola. I am the Digital Content Director here at Free Spiritual Community, and this has been a great series for anybody that is the loved one of the addict. And we've heard from Chandra last week, who was the fiance of an addict. We're hearing from John and Carrie tonight, and next week we bring in Kevin Peterson, who really established something called the Chronic Hope Institute. He's a two-time author that wrote 2 books, Chronic Hope, Parenting the Addicted Child, and Chronic Hope, Families and Addiction. He dedicates his mission and his life to making sure that families feel supported from treatment. Surprise, when your loved one goes to treatment, they don't just get fixed and come back. Surprise, the family has to do a little bit of work. And if you're having trouble creating boundaries in your life, then he's got some really clear ways for you to improve, clear ways for you to move through setting those boundaries, as simple as ABC, plan A, B, C. So tune in next Saturday. He's going to be our guest storyteller. We got a quick message from Kevin, so check it out.
Hey there, Free Community. Kevin Peterson here, licensed marriage and family therapist and owner and founder of the Chronic Hope Institute, 2-time author of Chronic Hope, Parenting the Addicted Child, and Chronic Hope, Families and Addiction. And if you are at the point where you feel like you have tried everything and talked to everyone and you're still not getting any relief, let me help you. I have a proven plan that I've designed and developed through my own private practice, my own personal experience of working with treatment centers and addicts and alcoholics and their families over the last 30 years. Let me help you next Saturday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and we'll go over the exact plan, A, B, and C, of what to do if you're struggling with an addict in your family.
All right, I can't wait. That's next week. So I hope you plan on joining us next week as well. Now, before we get into celebrations, because that's the way we start here in the free community, we celebrate together. Before we get there, I need y'all to grab a Kleenex, grab a tissue, because things are about to get emotional up in here. We have another letter to my addiction. This one is written by my boy Derek. Derek is here in the house tonight. Derek, are you 10 months sober now?
I'll be 11 months next Saturday.
11 months. Dude, I got it all wrong. 11 months sober next Saturday. He's been here since day one of his sobriety. It hasn't been an easy journey. He kicked us off with this kind of idea of a letter back back last Easter. We had him come in and redo it because he had some new things to say to this letter to my addiction. But I want you to take a look at Derek's letter, grab a tissue, and I'm going to see you in just a minute.
My name's Derek, and my sobriety date is February 24th, 2020, and this is a letter to my addiction. Dear addiction, you've taken my life with my permission to take the best parts of me and lock them away. You altered my brain, you've ruined my relationships, made me abandon my loved ones, lost all trust and faith with them. You had me at a point when I couldn't even look myself in the mirror, that I couldn't even love myself. You started to take the best parts of me and use them in horrible ways, to lie, to cheat, to manipulate. You took my light, you took my heart and my mind and closed them off to where I became an egotistical, self-centered, and angry person. Because I let you run my life, I lost my kids. I lost my dream of being a father. I lost college scholarships and pro sports. I broke the law. I fought. I was abused sexually and otherwise. I was assaulted and the assaulter. All because I wanted the pain and chaos. I wanted to be the victim, and I used all that pain in my life to get what I want. I walked on, ran over, destroyed everything to get sex, money, and most of all to feed you my addiction. But I realize now you are not my weakness. You are my strength as God keeps you at a safe distance. You are my greatest strength because of all that pain you caused. I have started to shine brighter as my brain heals. Your twisted thoughts of using to get happiness fail. As my mind starts to see that kindness, humor, love, and care are my two strengths. As my soul escapes the cage I let you put it in, you, my sobriety, is awestruck and silenced in the beauty of my sobriety. My soul has been waiting for this moment for me to let go so it could be let back in. Again, you, my addiction, is not my weakness. You are my greatest strength. Because you're a part of me whether I like it or not. So do I use you for negative consequences the rest of my life, or do I do positive work against your will? Because you are my higher power no more. My God allows me to harness you, to continue to heal myself, and in doing so, healing others, which is the most amazing thing my addiction has done for me. So radically, I give you up, but in doing so will never let you be a negative thing in my life again. You will, without any choice, through God, guide me to being a better man, a kind man, a caring man, and a loving man. You will allow me to see and use gifts I never even knew I had. I will be an amazing father because of you, a boyfriend or husband. Most importantly, you brought me to a point where you, yes, will always be mine, but I will never be yours again. P.S. It was 9 months ago I wrote this letter to you, my addiction. I'm now over 10 months sober. Here at Free, I've been taught about grace and acceptance, about love. They don't do shame and guilt here. So next time you come around addiction, I have a community of people who will stand with me in my recovery and the man I have become. And that brings me true joy. Wow, that's like the Holy Spirit was hitting me today. Whew.
Y'all, I asked Derek just to come forward for a moment to, this is what a renewed life, this is what hope looks like. This is what sobriety and recovery gives us, a new life, dude. Glad you're part of this community.
Thanks,
love you,
man.
brother.
I love you so much, man. Thank you for letting me share that.
Thanks, dude. All right, y'all, it's not hard to keep celebrating now. We're going to keep on with the celebrations, and this is our time when we get together and just give us the good stuff in life. Get vulnerable in the YouTube comments or the Facebook comments. We celebrate this stuff together, the good stuff, whether that's sobriety anniversaries, all the new good things in life, the new moves, the new jobs, new babies, new whatever it is, we lift all this stuff up. We believe God celebrates with us, and something really profound happens when literally thousands of people are joining with you in the celebration. So I know it can feel a little weird to type it in a comment what you're celebrating, but go ahead and get weird, because I promise you good stuff comes out of that. This community loves to celebrate with you. So take 2 minutes, and then we're going to come back and celebrate together. 2 minutes, y'all. All right, welcome back, everybody. We should scoot over a little bit. Let's celebrate, shall we? Can I just say, we had someone in the house just stand up and say they were 7 days sober, which we always celebrate that stuff. 7 days of sobriety. Yes. What's that?
That's so big. It's so awesome.
It is big
Glad
and
to
awesome.
Have you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's throw one on the screen.
Christy says, celebrating Jen, sharing her story with others today. Good job, Jen. Awesome.
All right, Jen.
Someday, Jen, you're going to be here sharing your story, so get ready for that.
No doubt about it. All right, Ricky Salazar. Hi, Ricky. Ricky is celebrating my new relationship with my daughter. I almost lost her in my addiction, but found her in recovery. God is good.
Beautiful.
Whew, man, I'm telling you, just reading that chokes me up a little bit to have a new relationship with your daughter. Sometimes stuff gets said here and it's like in passing. And that is, do y'all realize how big that is, that you get your daughter back? Ricky, I'm so glad you're here. I don't know if you're new with us. Do you know Ricky?
I don't think so.
Ricky, if you're new with us, man, I'm glad you're here. Keep connecting with us. You might find a home in this community, and that's the kind of stuff we celebrate. So way to go, brother. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, and for being brave and sharing that. Thank you for doing that. Jesse says, joining in for my second week.
Woo!
Sobriety.
Way to go, Jesse.
Sobriety has been going well. Had a spiritual awakening, and I feel renewed.
All right,
good to have you, Jesse.
Glad you're here. Thanks for sharing that with us. John says, Colin's girlfriend just got her very first job. Woo! Way to go, Colin's girlfriend.
We're
celebrating that with you. Thank you for sharing that with us, John.
Cindy says, celebrating Carrie and John.
Yes.
Carrie and John. Sharing their experience, strength, and hope. Good people.
Yes, y'all are going to meet Carrie and John in just a bit for those of you that don't know them, but thank you for lifting that up, Cindy. We're going to celebrate them. Simon says, Ricky Salazar, the daughter I almost lost in my addiction. We now have a beautiful relationship, still a work in progress. She turned 20 this week. Miracles happen all the time in this community, and we celebrate that here. Thank you for sharing that with us, Simon.
Oh, and I'm going to celebrate one thing too.
Do it.
There are no babies running around. It's quiet here, guys. My mom and dad are at home. They're here from Nebraska, and they're watching our kids tonight. So we have a breather, and I'm so grateful. So thanks for being at home with the babies.
We're celebrating being away from our kids. Yes.
Hey, it's been a long
Bill
year,
and Nancy,
okay?
if you're tuning in, glad you're here. Good to see you.
No, we're glad that
Glad you're
we're
in
glad they're in
Denver?
town.
Yes, absolutely.
That was a celebration, by the way.
That was a celebration, not a heartache.
Okay. Oh my
All right,
God.
do we have one more, Drew? Two more?
Oh, we do?
Okay.
Oh, I thought we were done.
Tammy's like, I said mine, I'm out.
I'm done. I celebrated.
Okay, Jennifer Deckard says, celebrating the awesome community that we live in, coming together and donating to our latest rescue doggy. We were able to get him seen by the vet today. All right, Jennifer, thank you for sharing that with us. Congratulations.
Good, Jen.
Let's
Awesome.
do one more.
Jamie, a little late, but I'm here. We'll celebrate that, Jamie. Yeah.
Glad you're here, Jamie. Better late than never. Is that it?
Okay.
Okay, we'll stop there. If you've got more celebrations, you can keep them coming all night long. You can keep them coming all week long, actually. We love to celebrate with you. We'll try to interact with you along the way if you've got questions and comments and celebrations tonight. We end the night with heartaches. We
That's
don't
crazy.
ignore the hard stuff here. We just don't start with it because sometimes we can get lost in that stuff. But it is the second week in Boundaries, Loving the Addict in Your Life.
Hey there, free community. Kevin Peterson here.
No worries. No worries at all. All right, y'all, so here's the deal. Back in, during my high school years, I learned the art of judging, manipulating, and controlling. Because, see, I grew up in a household with a big brother. In fact, this big brother of mine, he was 3 years older than me. And in high school, see, he took upon the label of being, quote unquote, the bad kid. He was always in trouble. He was in and out of the county jail. He was always into something, and he battled drug and alcohol addiction. And so in my mind, as a high schooler, he was bringing shame into our good Christian family. So in my need to control him, I would say things to him like, and I remember these conversations very vividly, I'd say, dude, do you not see what you're doing? Can you just stop doing this, and can you start doing this? And by the way, do you see what you're doing to mom? And when that method of control didn't work, I would just move to a new method. Y'all know the method of wooing. You woo them in. You go like this. Dude, it's just that you're the best of the siblings. You're the smartest. And you're the brightest. So to see it go down this way, it's just heartbreaking. And see, when those methods don't work, what we do as humans is we just become more and more absurd and more unhealthy, don't we? So I remember a Friday night, again, when I was in high school. And my brother Brandon, he was going off to a party that night. And I had a friend come over that night from the high school youth group. And he was staying the night. And when Brandon left to go to that party, well, me and this youth group friend, we went down in his room and we gathered up all of his belongings that we didn't approve of. Y'all remember 9 Inch Nails? Yeah, we took his 9 Inch Nails t-shirt, his Pantera t-shirt, and empty cigarette cartons, and empty booze bottles, and other items. Anything we didn't approve of, we put in a bin. And then we took that bin and we took it out to the street. Keep in mind, I grew up in Missouri, so you could do this sort of thing. We poured gasoline into the bin on all of his items, and we lit it on fire in the name of Jesus, of course, and we felt good about this, like we were doing the right thing. We went to bed that night, and the problem is my brother, who was bigger than me, well, he got home early the next morning, and he came storming into my room, and he said, dude, where's my stuff? And I popped out of bed. I said, your stuff is in ashes. He said, what do you mean? I said, we burned your stuff in the name of Jesus. And he said, you did what? And then he proceeded to, like big brothers do, give me quite a pounding. Here's what Jesus said. Do not give dogs We'll throw it on the screen. Do not give dogs what is holy. Do not throw your pearls to pigs, because if you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. Now, without proper context, this is just a crazy, bizarre Jesus saying. But put it into its proper context. This passage is about surrendering others to the care of God. It asks us some interesting questions. Do you trust that God can handle the people in your life, or have you been clinging to the practice of trying to control them and get them to behave the way you think they should behave? You see, this passage is about relinquishing our need to control other people. This passage is about turning others over to the loving care of God, and I know it's some of the hardest work we can do. And in this passage, Jesus is asking us the question, is there anyone you've been trying to control? Anyone you've been trying to manipulate? Is there anyone you need to set free? Now, it's interesting because this line comes from, and hang with me for a moment, we're going to go into a bit of history. This line comes from Matthew chapter 7, Matthew's gospel. Keep in mind, chapters 5, 6, and 7, we've talked about this here before. 5, 6, and 7 is what's called the Sermon on the Mount. It's called the Sermon on the Mount because Jesus was literally up on a mount giving a talk to people, a sermon to people. So they call it the Sermon on the Mount. Chapters 5, 6, and 7. You can read this thing in about 18 minutes if you go home and read it tonight. And this thing is absolutely fascinating because it's all about compassion and generosity and non-anxiousness and grace and non-violence. And it's about a new way of living in the world. And this saying, this phrase, this odd thing about pearls to pigs and giving dogs what is sacred, it comes at the end of the sermon. Now, in order to better understand this thing, we have to understand the thing that comes before the thing, because that's called context. And see, in chapter 6, right in the middle of the sermon, Jesus is talking about not being anxious. He says, don't worry about your life. Don't worry about tomorrow is how he says it. And it all sounds a bit glib. It sounds a bit cliche. And he says, don't worry about tomorrow because each day has enough trouble on its own. He talks about food and possessions, what it takes to pay the bills, all the stuff that keeps us anxious, all the stuff that keeps us up at night. And he says, don't worry. He says, look up at the sky. You see the birds? Then he says, look out to the fields. You see the lilies? If God cares for them, how much more does God care for you? Jesus is teaching us how to commit ourselves to the care of God. And by the way, Jesus was not into hypotheticals. When Jesus was talking, he was always talking to real people in a real world people who were dealing with real sufferings and real pains and real heartaches and real joys and real celebrations. It's about living with less anxiety and more peace. This is very practical advice for a bigger perspective of your life. Less worry and more calm. Who needs some of that? Yeah. And see, in chapter 7, Jesus shifts from you to others. And here's what he says. Don't judge or you too will be judged. Yes, it's about less anxiety and less worry and surrendering yourself. And it begins with you, but then it turns towards your relationship with others. And get this, y'all. The word for judge in the Greek, and keep in mind, the New Testament is written in Greek. The word for judge is this interesting word, krino. Krino. Say that word with me, krino. Krino. And in the Greek, it has 3 different translations. It can be translated as a legal setting, what happens in the courtroom. It can also be translated, the second thing, to make a decision. So when we go around and say, well, I don't want to judge. I don't want to judge. I don't want to sound judgmental. No. You are always making judgments. You had to make a judgment about whether or not you were going to be here tonight, whether or not you were going to show up. Tomorrow morning, you're going to make a judgment about whether you're going to brush your teeth first or go to the bathroom first. You can put it in the comments. Let us know. There's a third meaning of this word judge, and it's the thing that happens when you lower another person to raise yourself. Self-righteousness at the expense of others. Jesus keeps going. Check it out. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, here, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. Jesus gets harsh on this point. You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Now this is Jesus using big, over-the-top language to make a point, because it's true. Sometimes we try to control others, don't we? Come here. Let me get the speck out of your eye. No, you can't get too close because I have a log coming out of my eye. Let me get the speck out of your eye, though, so I can fix you. And it's a way of avoiding our own issues, our own pain. And see, as long as you focus on them, then you don't have to do the hard work within yourself. And it's Jesus saying, don't focus on the flaws of others as a way of avoiding your own issues. And then we get to that final line, the end of the sermon, that weird phrase that Jesus says. We'll throw it on the screen one more time. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs, because if you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. So you see how in chapter 6, the Sermon on the Mount is about surrendering yourself to God, to become a non-anxious presence in the world and living with that kind of abiding, sustaining peace and serenity. And then in the next section, it's about what happens when you don't surrender. What happens when you don't turn others over to God, when you're not at peace with the path of others. Because what do we do when we're not at peace with the path of others? Yeah, we try to control them, don't we? Have you been stuck in the game of trying to control other people? Have you ever been controlled or manipulated by others? How'd it feel? Some of you might be there right now. How does it feel? How does it currently feel? You know, right out of high school, I left Missouri and I went up to Michigan, and I attended a small fundamentalist Christian Bible school. Place I'd never been. I just went. And many of you know this story. Mom called me. I was there for about 1 month, and Mom called me on a Saturday and said, you need to come home. Your brother Brandon was just killed in a car accident. And y'all, I went home, and I'll make a really long story short. My life started to turn into chaos. I was filled with grief and anger, and addiction started taking hold, something I never expected to happen in my life. And I went back to this small fundamentalist Christian Bible school, and I say that because it was one of those schools that they didn't really like tattoos, and well, movies were bad. And y'all, this was the year The Matrix came out. Like the most theologically profound film in recent decades, right? And so, you know, when that happened in my life, I had all kinds of questions about God, and I was pushing God out. And I tried to finish out the semester, and I remember sitting in Old Testament class, 5 minutes into the Old Testament class, and the professor started talking like he would, and Ryan got a bright idea. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to leave. So I got up and I left the class. Before that class was over, I had my car packed, the entire dorm room packed up in my car. Literally, y'all, true story. I was putting my last box in, and when I raised up, the dean was right in my face. And he said, where are you going? I said, man, I'm leaving. He said, you just like leaving for the weekend? And I said, man, now I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. He said to me, you can't just leave. Y'all, I was in grief, I was in anger, probably a bit immature. In Ryan's infinite wisdom, I responded with something like, watch me. And I left. And you know what? For the next couple of weeks, the dean of the school would call me And he said things like that. I'm not making this up. He said, Ryan, you know, it's just that you're one of our finest students. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, if I am one of your finest students, like I'm a solid D in my life right now. I mean, my life is falling apart. Like addiction is taking over and I'm in the midst of grief. If I'm one of your finest students, you got a bigger problem on your hands. And the more he pushed, the further I would run. The more he came, the further I would run. And in college and seminary, but in late my college career, when I made the decision to depart the evangelical church that I was raised in, and I became a United Methodist, a member of the United Methodist Church, I had people in my life, people in my upbringing say to me, you're leaving the fold, you can't do that. People said to me, you're leaving Christianity. They said to me things like, God's seeing what's happening and God's a just God and you're not going to get away with this. When I was in seminary and I made the decision, and I was proud of this decision, to begin the ordination process and become a United Methodist pastor, I heard the same comments. And I'll never forget what someone in my upbringing, a man that I had a great deal of respect for, he said to me, and we thought you were going to be a great leader in the church. And it was like this crushing blow to me. And I remember thinking to myself, dude, a simple congratulations would have been just fine. But you know, it was comments like that that sent me into therapy. Conversations like this that sent me into therapy. These kinds of conversations filled me with shame and sent me deeper into addiction. And it took me years to see that these methods were always built on fear and manipulation and anxiety and control. And listen, when you leave a system or when you disrupt a system, and it doesn't matter what system it is, a family system, a political system, a religious system. When you leave or disrupt a system, it will always be difficult because systems always bend towards self-preservation. See, when we're not at peace with the path of others, I think what we do is we just behave in the most absurd and unhealthy ways. And this is what Jesus was picking up on. Jesus picked up on this at the end of his sermon. And I can't tell you all how many conversations I'm in that start with, well, Pastor Ryan, how do I get them to? How do I get her to do? How do I get him to go? And I wish I had this response years ago. I have it now. And it's really simple. You can't. You can't get them to do anything. You cannot control the other person. You can only control you and your response and your behavior. And people say, yeah, but I know where their path is headed and it's headed towards this place. I know, and it's hard to see, isn't it? Because you can see things they can't see, and sometimes their path is filled with self-destruction and pain and chaos, isn't it? And some of y'all have solutions. Some of you guys have good solutions. But when you become controlling and manipulative, you are wasting your energy. And here's the thing, God has only given you so much energy. You're giving sacred things to dogs and throwing your pearls to pigs, and you're expecting a good outcome. Stop doing that. Have you been trying to control or manipulate other people, and has it just produced more and more worry and more anxiety? And so my question to you tonight is, what would it look like for you to entrust them into God's loving care, to say, you know what, it's no longer my journey, it's theirs? And let me close with this. Outside perspective is really, really important. So if you're right in the middle of this stuff tonight, if you're right in the middle of this boundary stuff and trying to control everyone around you or control the addict in your life, let me make a suggestion. Because see, we were in Daytona Beach, Florida last summer. And you know, right before we went to Daytona Beach, I had read an article, came across on social media, and this article was about New Smyrna Beach, Florida, which is, I believe, someone in Florida can correct me, but I believe it's 10 miles north of Daytona Beach. And this article was titled, New Smyrna Beach, the new shark attack capital of the world. Come on, kids, let's go play in the beach. Which we did all week, by the way. We played all week in Daytona Beach in the waves and the water. We didn't see a shark all week until Friday, our last day there. See, we were staying in a condo. It was 11 floors up. And it was our last day. We were packing up our belongings, getting ready to head back to the airport. And I was standing out on the balcony, overlooking the water, standing out on the balcony with the kids. And we all saw it at the same time. About this 6-foot dark shadow. It was really close to the shore, going up and down the beach. At one point there was a group of people. There was lots of people in the water, but this shark started circling this group of people. And then it would go up, then back down. What do you think the kids started screaming? Shark! Shark! Get out of the water! And I said, babies, you can't start screaming. You're going to cause mass chaos. We got to go down there. So we exit the condo, we get into the elevator, we go 11 floors down, we walk out to the beach. And by this time there was one of those lifeguard trucks with sirens and bullhorns, and they were saying, please exit the water, a shark has been spotted, please exit the water. And I'll never forget, a guy was getting out of the water, he was soaking wet, and he says to me, he says, did y'all see something? And I'm like, bro, yeah, we saw it. In fact, you were right in the middle, and this shark was like swimming all around you, 6 feet long, and it was going up and down. And then he says, I didn't see anything. And I'm like, dude, that's because you were right in the middle of it. We were 11 floors up, we could see it. Find people in your life who can see the things that you can't see because you're right in the middle of it. And listen, make sure these people, make sure they love you, make sure they are for you, make sure they will fight for you. Don't go to just anybody with this stuff because you need to protect your heart here, and don't let just anyone in. Make sure they are people who love you, and they are people who are for you, and they can see things that you can't see because you're right there in the middle. You see, when we surrender ourselves to God, in my experience, it is an incredible experience of grace. And I get it, it's scary. We say, I don't know what's on the other side of surrender. It's too new, it's too scary. In my experience, grace and mercy is always on the other side. And see, when you stop giving your sacred things to dogs, and you stop throwing your pearls to pigs, and you start turning people over to God, in my experience, it's always one of grace. It's God saying, Ryan, I got him. No, Ryan, I got him. I got him. No, Ryan, I got you too. I got you too. And you, and you, and you, and you. I got you. I got you. So here's the deal, y'all. I want you to take 1 minute and reflect. Have you been trying to control or manipulate other people? What would it look like for you to turn them over? It's no longer my journey, but it's their journey. Here, God, you take it because it's too heavy. What would that look like? And listen, if you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you've been holding on to this stuff and fighting this stuff for too long, I want you to send a private message to us on our Facebook page. And someone will reach out to you tonight. These aren't experts, these aren't geniuses, these aren't the smartest people in the world. They're just people who have been there, people who have been in your shoes. So I want you to send a message, put your phone number in, and someone will contact you tonight. Take a moment and reflect. All right, welcome back, everybody. So glad you're with us tonight. I want to introduce you to my friends, John and Carrie Allison. We did things a little differently this week. Yeah, we can raise the roof for John and Carrie. We did things a little differently this week. Some of y'all know John and Carrie really well. They've been part of this community almost from the very beginning. But they, I was going to say they invited us into their home. That's not all the way true. I invited myself into their home. I said, listen, me and Danny are going to come in if y'all will let us. And we just want to have a conversation with you about their journey of being loved ones of the addict and what boundaries look like for them. So I don't want to say too much because it's all in this video. So I want you all to get comfortable. If you're at home and it's a chilly night, grab a blanket. I want you all to settle in for this conversation because it's a really, really important one. John and Carrie are in the house with us tonight, and they're going to engage with you as we go. So if you have questions or comments, put them in. They'll engage with you all night long. But please help me welcome my friends, John and Carrie Allison. Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Kennedy. I'm the pastor here at Free Spiritual Community. We are a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And for 3 weeks, we are in this series called Boundaries, Loving the Addict in Your Life. Last week, now we have a guest storyteller every week. Last week we had the fiance of someone who had battled addiction and is in recovery, and she gave us all kinds of stories and tools around boundaries and why boundaries are important. This week we have John and Carrie Allison with us. They are parents of an addict in recovery, and they're going to talk to us more about boundaries. And next week, it is a 3-week series, so the 3rd week we are going to have a clinician, an author, share with us from a family perspective of the importance of boundaries for families. So I hope you all join us for next week as well as we close down the series. John and Carrie, so grateful you guys are with us this evening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the vulnerability of sharing some of your story and your willingness to share that with us and with other people who are going to see this. So just to let you all know, John and Carrie, they are, as I said a minute ago, the loved ones of an addict, the parents of an addict who's in recovery. You've also had other family members. You're not new to this. You've also been members of this Free community almost from the very beginning. When we opened the doors at Free at our current location, you guys, I think, were there the very first week.
First week.
So early timers.
Yeah.
And you all have been married 35 years. And I think that's important because you guys have done this together. You've gone through this journey of loving your daughter through this battle of addiction, this ugly battle of addiction, and you've stayed together. It has not always been easy. You've weathered the storm. You're still weathering the storm because this work never ends, the work of boundaries. And so what I want people to hear some of your story and how boundaries, this is hard stuff. I said it last week that we're talking about the heart stuff here. And so part of me, I want to tread lightly and with grace because this is the closest stuff to your heart as parents, watching your daughter. This is at the very core of who you are. There's nothing closer to your heart. So I know some of this conversation is tender. And I want people to hear how boundaries are hard. They don't come naturally. They don't come easily for many of us. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, we, in our experience, in all our experiences, boundaries don't come naturally. Boundaries aren't something that we're born to know about or how to handle. When you have a loved one that's struggling, and your first nature is nurturing. It's always, what can I do? What can I do better? How can I take the pain away? And as things progress, you find that you can't take the pain away, and you struggle with doing more and more and more. But what you eventually find is that when you eventually come to that point of I can't keep doing it the same way every day, and this is my you'll finally find something. You get to a point and you say, I can't keep doing what I've been doing in the past because it's making it worse. And when you come to that conclusion, that is a boundary.
Yeah.
Even though you don't really get like, oh, I just created a boundary.
Yeah.
And it starts to feel better.
And Kara, you were telling me that it just wasn't. This isn't how you were raised. You weren't raised with like, here's what boundaries look like, and here's how I'm going to set it up.
Yeah.
That you said it even as a child growing up, you can remember not wanting to hurt people, not wanting to hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah, I was always afraid to say no to anybody, and I was always afraid to. I shouldn't say afraid. But I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I didn't realize that boundaries are for me. Not for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I've learned is that the boundary is for my own happiness.
I think you all used the phrase, you were addicted to the addict.
Yes.
Is it because you were so consumed with, is she okay? What's happening right now?
Yeah, it was just, where is she? How is she? When she was happy, I was happy. When she was down, I was down. It was kind of an enmeshment of, being like, I became part of her, like her sadness became my sadness. And I don't know how to explain it really, but we were addicted to the addict.
Yeah.
Like all our waking thoughts were about, how is she? Is she okay?
And what could we do next? It was always I was doing something. I was preparing every day. Every time I planned my day, I planned on something bad happening tomorrow. It was stressful. So when I would plan my week, I said, okay, I need to do everything Monday and Tuesday because I don't know what Wednesday and Thursday is going to bring. So I would always be planning for something that hasn't happened yet.
So living in that constant trauma.
Yeah, it's always, it was.
So walk us through the journey a little bit of when did you realize when you were watching your daughter battle addiction. Walk us through the journey a little bit of when did you realize, we're in trouble. Not she's in trouble. When we get that, we're in trouble. We need some boundaries.
For me, it was probably, we went for quite a few years with a bunch of chaos in our life, and I got a little distracted at work, obviously, because, as a mom, all you want to do is protect your child. And I started making mistake after mistake after mistake at work. And my boss finally came to me and said, I don't know what's going on with you, but you keep this up, we're going to have to let you go. And that was like the light that came on for me. It's like, my job was suffering, my friends and family were suffering, everything.
So was that like a moment of embarrassment for you? Was that like a moment of,
I was
my goodness,
totally
things just got
mortified.
real?
Yeah. I mean, I was mortified. And because I've always prided myself on doing a good job. And I did, and I worked for this person for probably 5 years before this happened. So he knew I could do a good job, but I was having a bad year. So anyway, that was kind of the light bulb moment for me, is that, I could lose my job. We could lose our home. We could lose everything, that we worked so hard for. And, at that point I was just like, we didn't have any friends. We didn't have family.
And help people understand that when you say my work was suffering, we were losing friendships, family relationships were suffering. Why is that?
Well,
and for people who would say to you, well, why couldn't you just let her be? Why couldn't you kick her out? Why couldn't you this is your life.
Everybody had their own advice, trust me.
Well, that's
Everybody had their own advice.
Some of the relationships that we had, though, they didn't understand. So, some of our friends didn't understand when we talked to them about it. They didn't understand. So we really just cut ties. We stopped calling people. We started isolating ourselves a little bit. We stopped going to the gym because people kept on asking, like, how's everybody doing?
And we just didn't want to talk about it.
I didn't want to talk about it
Because is it just you're so weary, you're so tired of answering that question, you're so
It's the stigma. It's the stigma that others see. I mean, as parents out there, there is a stigma attached to mental illness or alcoholism or drug addiction. That when you bring it up to others that don't believe, that have never experienced it and don't believe it's a disease, they look at you differently. Yeah. And it makes you. Then they start judge. Then I started feeling I was judged, and so then that's when I stepped back and said I don't want that feeling anymore. So we stopped communicating.
Yeah,
with
we
people.
just kind of hung back and did our own thing for a while and just stayed to ourselves.
And so that was as things progressed, her job was in jeopardy, and then my business. My head wasn't in the game, and when your head's not in the game in something, you stop making money, and
And tell me this, John, I have 2 daughters.
Right.
As a dad, as a pops, I want to think of part of my role as like, it bothers me when I can't protect them from something.
Right.
How, as a father, how did that, how was it when you knew you can't control this thing? You can't control this person, you can't control this addiction, you can't protect it,
You
right?
can't. Yeah, you eventually come to that conclusion that you can't protect them, you can't change things, and that's when boundaries become important to mitigate some of the feelings that you have and get you back on track as you as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's where boundaries come into play. And like in the beginning we were talking about how boundaries. It takes a while for them to start to come into your thoughts.
Yeah.
And then once they do, then it's hard to put them into action because you don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Because when you first think of a boundary, it's like, oh, I'm going to hurt that person that I was protecting.
Yeah.
But now I see that, but once you see everything that's happening to you, the boundary does start making things better.
Yeah. And I just want to take a moment and say to you all, if you're watching this right now and you're the one struggling, you're where John and Carrie have been, where you guys were for years. If you're watching that and you're saying, man, that's me. That's me. I'm enmeshed in this relationship. I'm trying to control the addiction and it's outside of my control and I don't have these boundaries in my life. That's why we're talking about this tonight. It's why we're going to keep talking about this, because you need to know you're not alone. People have been there. People have walked in your shoes, and people are still breathing. They're still living. They're here to talk about it. They're here to give some hope. So I want you all to share a bit. What was there in the recovery world? We often talk about a rock bottom, and I hit my bottom. That's when I experienced the gift of desperation. That's when I reached out for help. What was it where you said, enough's enough? I need to reach out, and what did that reaching out look like, or what did that setting up of a boundary look like?
Well, we figured out that our life became unmanageable. I mean, really, at the bottom, we figured out that our life had become unmanageable, and the rock bottom is really where we were sitting here together, no friends, both of our jobs becoming non-existent.
Yeah. Rattling apart.
And things started unraveling. Really, the fundamentals of happiness, of work, play, home ownership and things like that. Mm-hmm. Really, those fundamental things of life just started to unravel. And when we found that everything was once all that was gone, there was no hope for ourselves. The addiction is about to win. Yeah. Is how we felt. Yeah. And we had to make some boundaries to bring ourselves back out of that hole and start building our life back together. And we started becoming happier. And it was little thing. It wasn't overnight. It was It was a long
Baby steps.
Baby
And
steps.
people, we've got to understand that. This work of boundaries, it's not like we wake up one morning and say, you know what, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my entire life. We set baby steps in place and we say, here's one, and I'm going to stick to that today. We'll get to tomorrow when tomorrow gets here.
Well, and the
Here's
hard
another
part
one.
about being a couple too is that I may have a boundary, but he may have a different boundary.
And that was a big thing. That
was a big thing.
Trying to create boundaries that work for both of us was a struggle with us.
So were there times where you guys just totally butt heads
Oh,
and
absolutely.
your marriage became...
Oh, absolutely. Our marriage was on the rock. I mean, really, to put it in blue collar terms, it was on the rocks. I mean, it was like, I want to do it this way. You think you want to do it that way.
And it seemed like whenever I was strong and set a boundary, he wouldn't, and vice versa. So then he'd be strong and then I wouldn't.
So how do you do it now? Do you work as a team? Do you make these decisions
We talk
as a
about
team?
it together.
We talk about it together. But our talking about it together, like you're asking right now, is years in the making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, I think it's so, if you're watching this and you're saying, how come I can't get this? They seem to get it. How come? Because they're talking about
didn't come
years in the
easily.
making.
Yeah, it didn't come
Like
easily.
this isn't overnight stuff. So as I stated a few minutes ago, you all have been part of this free community almost from the beginning. At least we started in our backyard. You weren't part of that, but then we soon moved into our current space, and you guys were there from the very first week. From the perspective of being the loved ones, that second category, the loved ones of the addicts, what has this community meant to you?
Well, this community is, it's a community of hope. It's a community where addicts and loved ones of addicts can all be together in one room, and nobody's pointing the fingers at each other, because I feel like the whole like Al-Anon AA thing is kind of like, well, this is for me and this is for you. I like the fact that it's all together, that we're all loving each other, whether you're an addict or not.
Yeah.
That's
That we all get to come together.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. What about for you, John? What's this community meant to you?
Free's meant to me. It's really the community spirit, and our terminology is we don't do shame.
Yeah.
And I can walk in those doors and feel right at home. Every time I walk in there, I feel like I'm there for somebody, and somebody's there for me. And I wouldn't change a thing. How I entered into Free, I wouldn't change it a bit right now.
I love having you all in this community.
Thank you.
And I know you've helped a lot of people. I know you're going to continue to help a lot of people. Speaking of helping people, I want to end with this. Carrie, if you're comfortable as a mom, and then John, I want to ask you to do the same thing. To someone who's just sitting there watching this thinking, I'm never going to get there. I don't know how she did it, but I'm never going to get there. This is impossible. You don't understand. This addiction is so bad, and I'm watching them suffer and struggle, and I'm never going to have peace in this. What's a word of hope you can give to a mom out there struggling?
I guess all I can say is it does get better. Hang in there. I mean, I did use like Al-Anon and Nar-Anon as my sources and Free, of course, for surrounding myself with communities of people that do understand and aren't judging me. I do feel like if you just go and take care of yourself first, but until you get yourself straight, you can't really help your child. And so I found that by focusing on myself, I actually helped her. And it's kind of ironic, but
The paradox.
yeah, and so there is hope out there. There is, hang in there. When it feels like the worst, it will get better.
John, what do you say to a fellow dad who's watching their son or daughter battle?
I say, find a community. Free has helped me immensely. Community is everything. You can talk to others that have experienced what you're experiencing. I know a lot of people will be sitting back watching this going, my circumstances are totally different. They're not. It's just that I'm in a different place now, and I do know where you're at. I do know where others are at right now. If you're just starting on this journey, it feels hopeless, and you probably don't know who to turn to. But I was there. I mean, I was there by myself, wondering, what the hell do I do tomorrow? You know, and find a community like Free, and it's like I said, it's there for the taking. You just got to reach out a little bit and experience it.
So if that's you that they're talking about, if you're one of the ones struggling, I want to encourage you to connect with this community, connect with us on our Facebook page. We have a community who's going to love you. We don't do shame. We don't ever do shame in this community. We walk the journey together. Connect with us on our website, freespiritualcommunity.com. You can send us a message there. You can download the app. It too is free. Connect with us. One of those 3 ways. We would love to be in touch with you. We would love to walk with you in this community. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having
Good,
us.
good being here.
Peace. Thank you so much, John and Carrie, for your willingness, your vulnerability, for your giving hope. I wish y'all could have just saw the image that I just watched. John sitting in the back and Tawny, his daughter, embracing one another. That was a beautiful, I should have snapped a photo of it to send it to y'all. It was a beautiful moment. Thank you so much for your story and your gift you give to this community simply by being here and showing up. And I want you all to know we have that separate on video. We'll be sharing that later this week, along with Derek's letter to the addiction. Man, I get to stand in this community, and I'm just so dang proud of y'all. Y'all just like bring it, and you bring hope to people. So I love sharing your stuff. I can't wait to do that later this week. So here's what we're going to do. The way we close things down here at Free is with heartaches. It's the heavy stuff we carry, and we don't just end with the heavy for the sake of ending with the heavy. We end this way because we need the reminder that we do not walk this journey alone. We walk it together. The things you're carrying, the burdens you're carrying, they're too heavy to carry alone. You weren't meant to carry this heavy stuff alone. So take a couple of minutes, is it 3 minutes? Take 3 minutes and put your heartaches. Again, just like we did with celebrations, I know it can be weird and creepy and uncomfortable. It's a level of vulnerability, but I promise you, you're not going to regret it. This community will surround you with love. We have a prayer team here who's going to be lifting you up in prayer throughout the week. They're going to connect with you if you want us to. And so I want you to take 3 minutes and give us your comments in the comment section. And then we're going to come back and close things down with prayer. So take a few minutes and come back. Give us your heartaches, the heavy stuff, the burdens. There you go. Get closer to me, honey. You know I like it.
Oh gosh.
All right, y'all. We're gonna and I don't know if anyone mentioned it in the comments. We were talking about our own heartaches here, but of course, you know our country is at a point of unrest. Lots of unrest in this country. So we have to keep lifting one another up. We have to keep hearing one another, because as the St. Francis prayer reminds us, it is better to understand than to be understood. So keep hearing one another and loving one another. It is so important, especially with what's going on today. So prayers for our country. All right, shall we go to the community?
Well spoken, you know that? From Roy, please pray for healing for my mom, health, also for someone who crossed my sister's path in an elevator. His wife Janet is not expected to live. COVID and many other ailments associated. Then he goes on. Yeah.
Hey, prayers for them, Roy. And Roy, I just said it to you in a comment a minute ago. Glad you're part of this community, a new part of this community, but so glad you're joining us each week. Glad you're here. Prayers for your mom.
Yeah.
Ricky, glad you're still with us.
Ricky.
He says, watching people struggle and trying to help, and they continue down the same path. Yeah, it's hard to watch, isn't it, Ricky? We're going to keep praying for those. Thank you for lifting up the still struggling. Prayers for them. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Hey, Marty on
Marty
YouTube.
from YouTube.
I asked for prayers for my wonderful daughter, for addictive behavior, not alcohol driven, and for my strength to stay out of it and trust in God for healing.
The hard work. The hard work of turning them over. Prayers for you, Marty. Prayers for your daughter.
Thanks, Marty.
Pamela says, my cousin has COVID. She tanked this week and is now on a vent. Please pray right now. It does not look good. Pamela, so sorry to hear that. Prayers for your cousin.
Gosh, sorry, Pam.
Yeah.
And Mike says prayers for a coworker he knows he shouldn't drink. Was a few days, weeks, or months in, and then relapses. Wish he would ask for help.
All right. Praying for this coworker. Thanks for lifting them up, Mike. All right, y'all. If you have more things you want to lift up, heavy things you want to lift up, you can keep them coming in the comments all week long. And let me just close with, you know, the wagon. You can't see it on this camera, but it's literally right next to me. In fact, I'm touching it. Oh, you can see it. There you go. It's a central image of this community. If you're new with us, the wagon represents that we do life together. We get on the wagon together. If you fall off the wagon, we do not kick the wounded. What do we say here at Free? We do not do shame, ever. We never, ever, ever, ever do shame. What's that? Ever. The wagon represents we do this work together. On top of the wagon is a box, and it's our donation box. We have a few donation boxes around here, but since we're not meeting like in person right now, well, the way to give is to do it online. And really, I know we might sound like a broken record, but we cannot say thank you enough that your generous giving, and we're blown away. And we realize for many of you, this is a spiritual practice that you have added into your life. Your generous giving here keeps this thing going. It keeps the wagon going. So I do want to let you know, and we talked a minute ago, me and Ryan were talking about, there's lots of manipulative ways you can talk about giving, and we'll just be honest with you. We're happy to share with you all the needs and all the things your money goes to. I hope you all see it day in and day out, but there's needs, and your generous giving helps those needs. It helps keep the doors open, and of course I'm talking metaphorically and literally, because it's happening soon. Anyway, y'all, there's three ways to give. The first way to give is by simply downloading the app. It's a free app to download, Free Spiritual Community. You can give there weekly basis, monthly basis, one time, however y'all want to do it, or you can go to the website freespiritualcommunity.com/give. You can do it that way, or you can text the number on your screen and text to them, Be the Wagon, and it walks you through a set of instructions. It's all safe, simple, and secure. And listen, it keeps the mission thriving, which is to create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. Who are we a community for? Addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. Listen, y'all, it was so good to be with you tonight. I hope you stay connected to this community and plug in throughout the week. Shall we go out with a prayer? Let's go out with it only makes sense to go out with, oh, the Serenity Prayer used to hang right there. Let's go out with the Serenity Prayer. It goes like this. It's on your screen if you don't know it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. My free brothers and sisters, who do you need to let go of this week? What boundaries do you need to set up? Who do you need to set free so that you can go on and live the life that God intended you to live? Who do you need to entrust to God's care? Because you can't control it. You cannot control them. You can only control you. And with that, this week, may you experience all kinds of grace and peace. All right, we'll see you soon.